Hello there, Booktube. My name's Nathan, and I'm the Rambling Reviewer. I call myself that because, well, I tend to ramble in my videos, and, well, sometimes I tend to review things. And I figured I'd come and do, another random video. Mostly just talking about what I've been reading recently, and also things that I should be reading that I haven't got to yet. I'm not gonna talk about everything that I'm planning on reading this month for this. Mostly I'll just kind of talk about stuff that I should have already started, and that I'll probably be starting next week. Let's see, is there anything else over there that I need to know? Okay. So everything here that I'm reading is part of a buddy read, or a group read, or a read-a-thon. It's mostly been what I've been reading recently. And to start off, I want to talk a bit about Dangerous Visions, which David Wiley started, and which I joined, along with Gareth as Book Songs and Other Magic, Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads, Liam at Liam's Lyceum, and although I really haven't been active in the Voxer group, I recently noticed that Steve Donahue also joined us. We were supposed to start reading this, or I was supposed to start reading this, and read about a story a day. And, this started back towards the end of November. I've read one story in the forwards, so I'm very behind on this. I'm hoping to get a few more stories in tonight, to try to work towards catching up. The one story I read, though, was Evensong, which I did enjoy. It's very allegorical. I don't really want to talk about what the allegory is, as it's extremely short, and it isn't really explained what the allegory is until the very end. But it's kind of in the name. About an entity who is hiding out on a planet as another group of entities are trying to chase it down. So, yeah. Hopefully I'll have more to say about that soon. Now, another group read that I'm taking part in is a read-along of Mouse. And this one I'm reading with, again, Greg and Gareth, but also MJ at Reading This Life, and Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics. And I've read the first graphic novel for this, Mouse, Survivor's Tale, My Father Believes History. And for those who somehow don't know about this is Art Spiegelman, the writer and cartoonist for this. It's him interviewing his father, Vladek Spiegelman, who lived through the Holocaust, who much of his family died in the Holocaust. And it's just his story, but also the story of Art Spiegelman. Art Spiegelman dealing with the emotional trauma surrounding his father. His father is extremely miserly. He's actually kind of fits the stereotypical Jew, which is something that Art Spiegelman talks about in the story. The fact that he feels kind of guilty publishing this because it almost seems to confirm anti-Semitism. But also dealing with the loss of his mother. His mother committed suicide, who also survived through the Holocaust. And dealing with the emotional trauma of what he is learning first-hand accounts of the Holocaust. And this story is both extremely personal and emotional and human, but also extremely disturbing. There is some great illustrations in this. I want to show some. A lot of them are really very, very, very horrific. The Art Spiegelman uses animals to portray different groups of people. So the Germans are cats, and the Jews are mice. That's the most important one. But you also have Poles, who are pigs. The French are frogs. Americans are dogs. The Swedes are reindeer. There are some other ones. I can't find any of the really creepy ones right now. Oh, well, it's not a big deal. But as I said, also extremely human. Because like how he portrays, his father in an incredibly realistic manner, he doesn't sugarcoat it. He doesn't sugarcoat the bad parts of his dad, but also he doesn't sugarcoat the bad parts of himself. Or the real human guilt, griefs that just run through this graphic novel. Now, this is a reread for me. I read this back when I was maybe 15 or 16. So it's been a bit of time. But I am just loving this reread. It is incredibly well written, incredibly well illustrated, and the story pulls you along. It also is heavy. It is at times hard to keep going, even though you want to know what happens next. And there are times I had to put it down because of that emotional heaviness. But it is definitely a book that everyone should read. If you're interested in graphic novels at all, you should have read this. Really, like with Watchmen or I can't even think of another. Persepolis. It's one of the great graphic novels. But even more importantly, it's one of the great works of Holocaust literature, which, in my opinion, demands to be read. I've started on the second volume of that today. I actually only read a whole page of it, and not anything else, but I'm going to get back onto that. And I plan to have that done tonight. I'm also reading, this one is with Brandy, and I really dropped the ball on this one because I was supposed to have it done I was hoping to have it done the first weekend of December, but it's Solaris. Solaris by Stanislaw Lem. This was adapted into a movie in, I think, 2002. Yes, 2002. And it starred George Clooney, and I've never seen the movie. It is the story of a man who comes to a space station over a planet. The planet is called Solaris. And it is an ocean planet, but the ocean really isn't like normal water. It's like a weird protoplasmic something. It's quite possibly alive, possibly intelligent as well. And the story goes into him coming over the ship and what happens when he gets there. I'm about 5 chapters in. Brandy, I think, is towards the end or has finished it. Okay, she might be a little bit further off. I know she read up to 106, and the story has about 204 pages. The writing is slow and kind of plotting. And Stanislaw Lem shoves in a lot of neologisms. And it can be dense to get through, but the writing also isn't that good, and so I think that gets in the way more than the density of the writing does. Granted, Brandy has said in our Voxer that it does get better, because I'm behind her. So, I'm still enjoying it. It does have a little bit... It has some allusions, it seems, to mythology, which I'm interested to see where that goes. So optimistic. I am reading with Shawn D. Standfast this collection, Japanese Ghost Stories by Ladcadio Hearn. Ladcadio Hearn was an Irish, a Greco-Irish man, and he was born about mid of the 19th century. And he lived until the early 20th century. And he was a correspondent in the USA. And then he was a correspondent from the West Indies. He traveled several places and wrote. And it seems from my reading about it, he seems to have particularly grown attached to other cultures. The black the black culture in Cincinnati, Ohio, the Creole culture in New Orleans, the culture of various islands in West Indies, and of course the culture of Japan, which is where he gets most of his fame from. He's been kind of described jokingly on several forums as the first weeb, or the greatest weeb. Which for those who don't know, basically is just a kind of a playfully derogatory term that has been taken by people who particularly love Japanese culture. But it's a term to make fun of people who really like Japanese culture, who really get into anime or manga or other aspects of Japanese culture, but it's particularly manga and anime. But very much has been reclaimed. It doesn't have the kind of like I don't think it has the kind of stereotypical, or not stereotypical, but the kind of major negativity that other words have. But and in this the editor, Paul Murray and Penguin, takes together a bunch of his ghost stories. This was when he was particularly famous for his writing ghost stories that he was told in Japan, often by his wife, but sometimes by other people. And some of these are anecdotal. Some of these are like things he heard on the street. And they come from multiple different stories, and that definitely shows. The stories don't really have anything binding them together from story to story, but they do have little snippets from the full book, it seems. Well, like for instance, the very first story. Actually, I'll talk about. Yeah, the first story of Ghosts and Goblins. It tells one story, but then it talks about how he's walking with his basically his servant, his manservant, and he asks the manservant to tell him another story, and then that goes into another story, and then it skips into another chapter basically from another book. And that can be jarring. And it can also be jarring because not all of these are really ghost stories as you would imagine them. Some of these are closer to folklore. They don't have anything ghost. They don't have a ghost in them. They have other kinds of supernatural entities like water spirits that almost are more akin to like fairies. It's the Japanese equivalent of that. And various other Buddhist and Shinto entities. And then some of them are actually like almost moral tales. Or stories about the Buddhist afterlife. And this variety is extremely, extremely interesting. I do wish there was more details at the beginning and the introduction that explains why some of these stories were chosen, and if there's any kind of unifying theme. But I definitely want to read more Ladcadio here. And I believe Shawn, who I'm reading this with, agrees. And I've been reading some of the stories of H.P. Lovecraft because of the Cthulhu Christmas readathon, which I'm doing this with Greg again, and Alan again, and MJ again, and Kristen at it's not coming up to me right now. I can't quite remember her channel name, but I'll link it. I will link it down below. Sorry, Kristen. And I think also Ollie is doing it. I seem to remember he was in the group, in the Voxer group, but I haven't heard him say anything, so. But I've read several stories out of this. I have read The Shadow Out of Time and The Haunter in the Dark. And was that actually it? Yeah, that's it. That's the only two I've read so far. I was confused because I did start another story a couple of days ago and then didn't continue it. I do need to get back to it, but The Shadow Out of Time and The Haunter in the Dark are both excellent. The Haunter in the Dark, I think, is actually one of the scariest H.P. Lovecraft stories I've read. It's not actually scary, but it does do the creepiness aspect very well. It's about a man who goes to a who lives in a town. He sees a steeple outside his window, and decides to visit the church, and there is kind of an entity who lives there. There's a great part where towards the end the entity is chasing him, and he's hiding in his house. And the entity can only cross when it's dark. And he just knows it's coming. And then a thunderstorm hits and knocks out the power grid. Very effective horror. And with some links to the outside Cthulhu mythos. Now, if that one had some links, Shadow Out of Time had a lot of links. This one follows a man who went through a period of amnesia, and also where his personality seemed to have changed. And he finds out that what happened is another race, a race from the past, with time-traveling capabilities to kind of transfer their intelligence into the intelligence of another creature in another time, and another space. Took over his mind for a brief time. Kind of grabbed all the bits of information about human history of this time period, and the occult, and religion, and spirituality, and science, and all this other stuff, and then went back. And it's this main character's journey to try to figure out what happened. And it was really, really, really good. A very good story. Definitely one of my favorites, especially because it portrays the aliens, the entities, in a more than just horrific mode. Now, I also want to show a few of the things that I've kind of dropped the ball on, but also a few of the things that I'm planning on reading in this coming week. So first of all, the thing that I definitely dropped the ball on is Diamond Dog's Turquoise Days by Alastair Reynolds. I particularly dropped the ball on this one because I was the one who brought this up in the New Worlds November group when we all decided to read it. I had brought this up as a example of alien archaeology. I get the feeling that Shawn might disagree. Because there's no digging. Well, actually, there is digging. There is digging at the very beginning. Never mind. And this is 2 novellas that are set in Alastair Reynolds' Revelation Space Universe. Well, the 2 novellas are, of course, Diamond Dog's Turquoise Days. And this is a reread for me. But I haven't actually got to the reread yet. This is a library copy. So. This is also a library copy. This is a full of Moondust. We actually have not started this one yet. Or I think Scott started it, but then he put it aside. It is an Alastair Clarke story. Back in during New Worlds November, me, Becky at Bush Bryant's, and Shawn D. Standfast read Childhood End. That was a reread for me. It was a wonderful reread. I'm definitely glad I got back to it. This is a first time read for me though. And I don't even really know what it's about. I've never. Okay, that's interesting. I just looked at the background, and the first thing I see is it has somebody to do with Selene, Queen of the Underworld, or Taurus Bus, imprisoned in the Sea of Thirst by a fall of Moondust. Okay, that's very, very interesting now. I actually really do want to read this now. I literally hadn't even looked at what the synopsis was of this. But yeah, I'm going to be reading this with Scott, Shawn, I think Brandy, and someone else, maybe? I guess that is everybody. Oh, and this I'm reading was Shawn, Brandy, Scott, Greg, and Matt Defoe at Science Fiction Reads. And one more thing I'm wanting to read in the new year, or not the new year, the new week, is The Hobbit by Jrr Tolkien. This is also a reread. I read this at least once when I was younger. This particular copy belonged to my dad. And I've also got a similar copy of Jrr Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings right over here. And now, I have not read The Lord of the Rings. It's actually probably among the most significant works that I have not read. And which I need to read. And I'm reading The Hobbit with Shawn D. Standfast. And with Mark at Book Time with Elvis. And also possibly with Brandy at a Book Collecting. I might have mentioned Brandy a few times, but I don't know if I ever said her channel name. It's the Book Collecting. They'll all be linked down below, though. So yeah. Looking forward to this reread. Also looking forward to this reread. And looking forward to reading this for the first time. So that's everything that I have been reading, or that I am going to read. At least I know I'm going to read in the new week. Well, that I plan to read in the new week. I might hopefully read some more stuff. I've got several other books I want to read. So yeah, I hope your week is going great, BookTube. And let me know down below what you've been reading. Alright. Bye.